Good day, dear students. Today we're going to discuss second and third part of Things Fall Apart, uh, which is quite connected with the first part that we have discussed at great length. Um, we have seen that first part is largely about the cultural representation of a mafia or one of the African countries or tribes, and we see that how Okonkwo made his place in his tribe and ultimately he had to face emasculation due to a female crime that he committed, an inadvertent killing of a boy at a funeral. So he was banished or he was sent to exile to his mother tribe for 7 years. So this is the law of the land that he had to follow. Um, we would see that how he settles in his mother tribe, Mabanta, and some other news he comes across there. So he's warmly welcomed at Mamanta by Uchendu, one of his uncles, maternal uncles, and he offers him a plot of land where he Okonkwo makes his compound and establishes his farm. But somehow or the other, Okonkwo is not happy with his settling at Mabanta because he thought that there was a problem with his personal spirit or sheep, and it was his personal god that was responsible for his failure because he did not want to be emasculated or he did not want to be put to shame of being sent to his mother's tribe. Uh, he somehow or the other, with the passage of time, he settles there with the help of Ochendu and his family. Uh, During the second year of his exile, Obereka, his friend, visits Okonkwo and he tells the story of Abeme, where the white men had entered. So he tells him that how a white man reaches Abeme on his bicycle, and after consulting Oracle, the natives of Abeme uh, kill that white man because Oracle has prophesied that that white man would be responsible to wipe out all the clans or villages that are surrounding Abeme. So, as a consequence, they kill that white man. But in retribution, what happens that many white men arrive at Abeme with their modern weapons and they wipe out whole Abeme or they destroyed everything in that village. So, listening to this story, Okonkwo feels restless and he is a bit terrified and he accepts that that white man should not have been killed because Abeme people don't know much about that white person. So before leaving, Abarika gives money to Okonkwo because he has invested his games in a mafia that Okonkwo had left. So he gives that money and he also promises him that the next year or rather the upcoming years, he'll be giving money to Okonkwo uh, of the share that he has with Obarika. So meanwhile, Okonkwo is living in Mabanta. Six missionaries arrive in Mabanta to preach Christianity. Uh, Okonkwo does not like this intervention, or he does not like such kind of influence by any other religion. But his son Navoye is quite impressed, and he converts to Christianity. Since Navoje, according to Conquo, is a weak character, so he is influenced greatly by Christianity. And he is not the only one who has been impressed by Christianity, but there are other people, weak people in the tribe or village who were converted to Christianity. And the preachers are largely from the native people because these missionaries have hired the local people and they hired their services in order to preach Christianity and convert the natives of Mabanta. So after that, missionaries requested for a church or a land for the church. So they are given a land in Evil Forest, and this land is given to them because the locals or natives think that this is a cursed land, and the missionaries would not settle there. But missionaries settle there, and they start propagating the new religion. So natives start believing that these white people have some extraordinary power, or they have some magic, because no one can survive in that evil forest because this is a cursed land. But these white people, they uh, survive there. So it's time now. It's about 7 years almost, and Okonkwo is to depart Mabanta for Omofia. Before leaving, he arranges a big feast for his mother's kinsmen, for their hospitality, and a symbol of gratitude. He arranges a big feast for them uh, so that he can express his thankfulness towards his maternal uncle and his family. So this makes the second part of Things Fall Apart, and you see that this is largely about the exile of Okonkwo and how he lives in a new place or in the tribe of his mother. Um, Although he is living there, but he is not satisfied, and he feels like a fish out of water, and he wants to go back to Amorphia all the time so that he could continue his life uh, that he used to have. Well, in part three, he returns to Amorphia, but on his return, he finds Amorphia a changed place, an entirely changed place, because the men had lost their dignity and they are not you know the men he has left. So many men have converted to Christianity. They have renounced the titles, the local titles that they are awarded, but they have preferred to join Christianity. And white men have taken control by establishing a prison, a court of law, and they appointed natives, of course, to interact with the native people. Okonkwo feels restless on the Akbala nature because he feels that the men of Amorphia have become women, and nature of Amorphian men who have not taken any action to get rid of the outsiders. He was quite perturbed. He wonders why the locals or the natives have not taken any action to retaliate the influence of the outsiders. Uh, at the same time, there is a Mr. Brown, who is very kind-hearted person, and he is a bit assimilationist, although he has his own values, but he tries to learn the Omorphian values also, and he tries to get mixed with the local people. So he tries to learn Igbo traditions and spreads education. But Kongpo does not like the change in Omofia at all, no matter it is the change in his son. Although Mr. Brown tells him that Nivoje is getting education in a college, but Okonkwo is least impressed by his education and he does not like this change in Amofia. And it was quite unfortunate that after Mr. Brown, Mr. James Smith takes charge of the church. Mr. James Smith is a strict and intolerant person, and he does not like the retaliation of or the rejection of any native, and he tries to suppress the violence. So his this strictness brings violence in the area, and violence erupts on an incident of Enoch's unmasking and Igbugbo. So those personated figures were unmasked by Enoch. Enoch is a newly converted Christian from the natives. So in retaliation, the natives burned the church. So it is very alarming for the local people because this may bring something um, fatal for the local. So uh, district commissioner in his fury calls a meeting of the local leaders and native leaders. So six native leaders, including a Conco, are called upon for meeting, but they are retained until the native pay to 250 cowries as a fine. You see that this humiliation, when you are called somewhere for a meeting and then you are imprisoned there, or you are retained for a ransom or a fine, so you feel like you are odd man out in your own community. So you are brought to shame in your own place. So this is something that is unbearable for people like a Okonkwo, and Okonkwo and his friend, they try to uh, resolve this issue. So they keep on discussing what to do with these outsiders and how to get rid of them. So the next day, Okonkwo and his friends arrange a meeting to decide the future of Okonkwo. Uh, but to stop, it's a mafia. So they want to decide the future of a mafia. But to stop that meeting, five court messengers arrive. The influence of the court is quite huge in this local culture, and they don't want these local people to gather to incite some violence or to incite some retaliation. So they try to stop that meeting. But Okonkwo, in a fit of fury, beheads the in charge of those messengers. Through his machete, he kills the in charge. But he realizes that people or Morphian people are not ready for war because they do not stop the rest of the messengers to escape. He wants that every one of the messengers should be killed, but nobody harms them and they escape unharmed. So Okonkwo has realized that now he is living in a society of Akbalas and there are no men in this society, and now it is not time to live. It is not right time to live in this place the way he used to live. So he decides to commit suicide. So that suicide, is considered a female crime in a Morphian society. That's why nobody touches him. And when the district commissioner arrives there with his men, the local people and Oberika, they ask them to do burial for a Okonkwo because it is a tradition in Amofia or Igbo that if somebody commits suicide, since this is a female crime, nobody gives a decent burial to him. So the burial should be given to them by outsiders. So those outsiders give burial to Okonkwo. So f- at the end, Okonkwo decides to die in harness because everything has fallen apart. You see that this suicide is not due to the terror of the white people, or it is not due to the consequences of the murder that Okonkwo has done. It was due to the um destruction of the harmony of the culture of Omofia. You see that in the beginning of this novel, how Echebe has tried to um, propose a thesis and then try to reach a conclusion that how things fall apart by the arrival of those missionaries and the Westerners or the colonizers. In the beginning, he has given an elaborated account of the local culture, and we see that these first 13 chapters are totally related to Mofian life, and then we have slight mix of Mabanta's life and the arrival of missionaries, and the final part we see that how those colonizers, the outsiders, have taken control and how things fell apart, or how the cultural values of Mofia, which were harmonized or united, have been disunited, and they have been deharmonized by the outsiders or the colonizers. So this is how he tries to uh, maintain his proposition, or tries to write back to the imperial discourses on African people. So when we consider this text as a creative response to Heart of Darkness, we see that in Heart of Darkness, African people have been portrayed as a cultural, a religious, uh, ahistorical, asocial, anarchical, uncivilized. But here, in Things Fall Apart, Achebe tries to maintain that it is not the case. The African people have a strong history, they have a strong culture, their social structure is full of connectivity and unity, and they have law which is respected, and the Nkongpo is one of them. And no matter you are poor or rich, or you are strong or weak, you have to follow the law of the land. So uh, nothing is anarchical, and civilization could not be defined with reference to the West. So everything was connected and in harmony, unless the white men arrive in these tribes. So basically, this is a creative response to uh, the canonical assumptions or discourses on Africa. And Achebe has rightly indicated this aspect of stereotyping the African people and giving them an identity which makes them savage, brutes, and uncivilized, acultural, asocial. So this is this can be concluded that Things Fall Apart is a creative response to the canonical imperial discourses on African people or African communities.